So lovely to have you back with us right here on Curiosity, Not Judgment. Welcome. I'm Birga.
And I'm Gary.
So, wanted to share with you a little story that I heard. I cannot take credit for this, and I unfortunately did not write down the gentleman who I heard presenting this story, but I thought it was a good one. He was recounting a exchange that he had witnessed at a restaurant where there was two young women. They're patronizing the restaurant, or waiting to patronize the restaurant, rather. There was a wait for a table, and a family came in with a little girl who was dressed in full Disney princess regalia. And one of the young women takes notice of her and stops and stoops down and says, "Oh my goodness, are you Sleeping Beauty?" And the little girl says, "Yes." And the young woman asks for her autograph. And the little girl delightedly scribbles something on a piece of paper, and then the time comes, the young women are called and their table's ready, and they allow the family to be seated before them. And so this gentleman who was seating at, bar seating kind of at the counter had witnessed all this and then engaged in conversation with the young women about why the kindness. And it goes on to share the story about the why. But the conclusion of the story really was she had learned from her grandfather the power of always leaving a trail of smiles. And I thought it was such a beautiful story and such a beautiful concept. It makes me very mindful to ask the question, what atmosphere do I leave when I walk out of a room?
What a great story. I love that. It almost brought tears to my eyes. I think that that's the kind of thing that, imagine what the world would be like if we were all doing that.
Yeah.
Or even a percentage
Yes.
of people doing that, because it's so hard not to watch and witness that. Imagine the ripple effect, even in the story that it had, of the people even observing that, including, the person who's the receptionist and the waiters and other people in the restaurant. That's the kind of thing that can have just profound effects. And I always think about the opposite of, the two women could have been, since they're waiting in line, being complaining about the wait and saying bad stories and going, oh my God, they're bringing a kid. We want it to be, and it's one of those where leaving a smile is just so much better.
Yeah.
And how can we do that? And even if we just think about the day ahead and we think, how can I, at the end of that meeting, how can we all stand up, shake hands, or hug, and smile, even if it's a tough situation?
Yeah.
Or, in traffic today, can I wave at three people versus any other action for three people? Or, what can I do in any given situation like that? I can't wait till the next time I see a kid in costume. I'm going to ask for their autograph. I think that's great. I'm going on a family vacation tomorrow evening, and and it's going to be a long. I mean, one of the flights is 16 hours and 20 minutes, and now I'm going to be thinking and discussing with my wife, how can we make people smile all the way? I travel quite a bit. And so we're often in situations, especially in the last year, as the airlines have picked back up and weather and everything else, where we are in tough situations. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were flying into Newark, and I tell you, getting Newarked must be a verb. I apologize to anybody who lives in New Jersey, but oh my goodness, I can easily remember the amount of times that I'm in Newark and things get canceled. And we came in on a late flight. 9 o'clock at night, we were supposed to do one more leg down to Wilmington. We land and the flight's been canceled. And it's just like, And okay, so now my choice is trying to get out the next day, but it's my daughter's birthday and I'm gonna miss the thing that we had arranged, which is a nice yacht ride on the coastal waterways. And what are we gonna do? And I'm gonna basically decided to, no matter what happens, what's the nearest airport? I'm gonna hire a car and drive. And we ended up doing that. We ended up going to Charleston and driving 3 hours and 20 minutes. I got there at 5:30 in the morning, tried to sneak in for a nap, and grandkids came out and hey, and we never got to sleep. But we made it to the yacht ride. The point of all that is, as we're going up to the person who's gonna try to help us find another flight, my wife and I always remind each other, and we stop and we look and we say, remember to smile. And my wife is so good at figuring out how to find something to compliment the person on, whether it's their nails or their tie or their whatever. And You know, I can't tell you, I don't have definitive, accurate data, but I would guess that we at least made that person feel a little bit better compared to
Yeah.
everybody else who's screaming at them.
Yep.
And we probably have produced a little bit of good karma, and we probably are getting better service. So there's some good consequences, but that's not why we do it. We
Right.
do it to remind ourselves that these are human beings who are in tough situations, and they don't want to be there either.
Yeah.
Trying to help us deal with that. And so it's that's a leaving a trail of smiles, no matter what the situation, is key. I think that's the great part of that story, because we will all find ourselves in tough situations, and we will have the choice as to whether to smile and be pleasant through it,
Yeah.
or whether to be angry and frown and yell at people through it. And no matter how bad the situation is, we can make that choice.
Yeah, that's right.
Will we?
Yeah, that's the curious question, right? Will we choose something contrary to how we're feeling in order to shift the atmosphere? Right?
It's one of those things, it's not complicated, it's just hard.
It's very hard sometimes, very hard.
Because we can sit here in the middle of doing a podcast and say, you know what, I'm going to do that every single action the rest of my life. But then life's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like the guy who gets up in the morning, or he's in prayer, and he's saying, okay, so far today I haven't hit anybody, I haven't yelled at anybody, I haven't cursed at anybody, but I'm going to get out of bed now. And you know, help me maintain that throughout the day. Can we take that positive smile into any given situation?
Yeah. I admit that sometimes I just need a mental break from work and life, and I'll get on TikTok sometimes and, you know, spend 5 or 10 minutes. And I find the greatest delight in some of the videos or the content producers that are highlighting these joy-filled moments.
Interesting.
Or the folks that go out and kind of like man on the street interview, and it looks like somebody who's, you know, completely down on their luck, and they hand them over $500, and I'll weep every time. But there was just a series of stories that I've seen over the last couple of weeks that all just gave that little bit of lift and life. And I thought, man, if we can be creative about how we engage with our fellow human beings in such a way as to make them smile, how it really does reset the atmosphere. And was seeing some massive traffic jam, you know, just bumper to bumper, nobody's moving for hours. And this little kid gets out of the car, he's probably 11 or 12 years old, and runs up to each car and starts doing rock, paper, scissors with the driver. You know, and they're startled at first, but the second they see what's going on, you see a change, a complete change in their countenance. And, you know, then somebody else was driving around, and it's hot. You can tell it's just sun beating down on all the drivers. People seem relatively grouchy. Pulls up next to a car and makes the gesture for them to roll down the window. So they start to roll down the window, and he rolls his back up. And, you know, and it's just like that little joke, that little laugh, and almost 100% of the time, well, at least what's shown on the video, you know, the other driver responds with a chuckle. And so it's just that moment of, I can impact someone with some glee, with some joy, with a smile, and change the dynamic. You're hot, you're tired, you're stuck in traffic, but there's still something that you can do.
What a great lesson in curiosity, not judgment. I can judge that I'm in a terrible situation and that everybody else is in a terrible situation. And shouldn't we all just grouse and complain at each other and maybe even make the situation worse? Or can I ask the question, what could I do to make this situation better? What one little thing? Robert Fulghum, who wrote All I Needed to Know About Life I Learned in Kindergarten, did a series of short stories, and I may have talked about this before, but this one bears repeating. He does a whole series of short stories on being a player. This is before playa. I don't mean that.
Team player.
Being a player in life.
Okay.
So he'd go up to next to somebody in the grocery store and excuse me, and change carts, or somebody would be walking down the street past his house, and he would just yell out something and say, "Hey, you want to hear a good joke?" He'd just do random little funny things.
Yeah.
And what a great, and you could tell as he's relating the story what joy that brought the other people. And you got to do this carefully these days. But,
Yes.
but as I'm telling the story, but you know, what a better way to live.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else you did, and I saw what you did there. You're one of the only people I've heard use TikTok for such a great purpose. And garbage in, garbage out, good things in, good things out. You're searching, and you probably now get fed because of the algorithms.
Because I love the weepy stories.
Exactly.
So much.
You're going to get the joy. You're going to get the, isn't this a good story? You're going to get the, hey, look at people being kind stories, because that's what you look for.
Yeah.
And if we fill our lives with that versus filling it with the evening news and what we hate about this and the doom scrolling like you talked about, you're going to get better things. So we can decide that we are going to do our absolute best, and we're going to fail, but we're going to do our absolute best on leaving a trail of smiles.
Yeah.
And what can we do to help prepare ourselves for that? Look for stories of kindness.
Yes.
If you must be doing the UCS, you know I call it useless computer stuff. If you're going to be doing that, at least look for heartwarming stories.
Yeah.
Look for those things. Look for those things and ideas that you could do for other people.
Yes. And ways to include your children in it or your grandchildren.
Which was a way to pass it on.
Yeah.
I'm now, when I go get off the plane in Singapore and I see these 4 grandkids I haven't seen in a while, I'm going to say, hey, let's all try to figure out how many smiles we can leave in a foreign language, in a foreign culture. How do we do that? What could we do, you know? And you know, we have little games that we play, like, you know, I'll say, is everybody happy? Happy, right? And you know, when we do that and we're in a restaurant or we're in a given situation, everybody around reacts to that, you know? And so how can we make up little things to do and little ways to leave a trail of smiles? How much creativity and effort does it take for us to do that, except for just to decide to do it?
Yeah. Well, you know, depending on when you listen to it, whether it be, you know, close to the date that we post this or much later, your seasons may dictate some of those opportunities as well, right? So we're in the heat of summer right now, and maybe passing some lemonade stands. What happens if you pay $5 for a 50-cent glass of lemonade, and what joy and delight would that give to, you know, a little kid selling lemonade, or, you know, going into a laundromat and leaving a few stacks of quarters around, and just have them be available for the next person that walks in. You won't get the benefit of seeing that smile, but I can tell you it'll make an impact. And just some of those little inexpensive things, or even being stocked up with candy bars the next time you go into work, and, you know, passing them out, or even secretly leaving them on a chair or whatever. Just that ability to infuse that little bit of joy into somebody's life.
You know, walking around with a stack of $2 bills and giving one to the receptionist, or when you turn your rental car back in, give one. I think I related to you the story about, I had just been thinking a lot about generosity, and my wife and I had started talking about people that don't usually get a tip. And so I was returning a rental car, and I had already driven to my grandkids' house, and my oldest grandson in this family said, can I go with you to return the car? I said, sure. So we go to return the car, and I had decided that I was going to give, you know, $5 or $10 or whatever to the person who checked me in and returned the car, because those people never get tipped.
Yeah.
Usually they're just like, you know, people rushing by them all day long, right?
Absolutely.
And so I gave him a tip, and my grandson said, why did you do that? You know, and he
was curious.
He'd seen other people return cars before, and I said, oh, I just decided that today was a good day to do that. And he goes, wow, you can just do that. You don't have to do it just in situations where it's expected. I could just randomly do it anytime I want. I go, yeah. So imagine seeing that as a 12-year-old, you know. And that's back to that ripple effect. You never know what little things like that. I love the quarters idea. Next time I'm in a laundromat situation, I'm going to buy I don't carry around quarters.
Sure.
I'm going to buy $10 worth of quarters anyway.
There you go.
Why wouldn't I just leave the rest there? That's a great idea. And so now I'm going to leave quarters. I'm going to ask for autographs of princesses.
Excellent.
And so those are the little things. And imagine if we were all brainstorming those kinds of things and then watching videos about those kinds of things, we can get other ideas of things to do. Because generosity is another way to do that. And it doesn't have to be massive. You don't have to give away $1 million.
Nope.
You know, $2 bills, or give away, you know, a $5 bill to somebody who's not expecting it, or even $1 to somebody who doesn't usually get a tip. I mean, those are really, really good things that bring a smile and an act of, look, if someone's been generous to me, I'm going to naturally feel like being more generous to others.
Yeah.
And that kind of ripple effect could be huge. And who knows, you might have a ripple effect out to something where someone was considering doing something bad, and they do something good instead as a result.
Yep. I'll tell you, one of my other sources for joy-filled stories for me is Steve Hartman with CBS and the On the Road series.
I've heard about that.
Oh my gosh, I love those stories so much. But every week it's a different person that he highlights and how they're making a difference in their community. There was one particular little program that he had built about this woman who worked in, I think it was in bill collection, medical bill collection. And so she had to send out invoices for people that owed medical debt. But so she had a correspondence with one particular woman and started doodling on the envelope. And over time, the doodles got progressively more and more elaborate until the woman who was receiving the correspondence called the department and said, who is this? I need to know who this person is. And they end up developing this friendship, and then, you know, as the debt goes down, and I hope I'm recounting the story correct, something along those lines. As the debt goes down, and as, you know, the time of correspondence diminishes, you know, the last few envelopes are full on, you know, pictures with characters, and it's telling a story. And the woman was so amazed by the time taken and the talent demonstrated by this collection agent that she had saved all of these envelopes, and they ended up opening a gallery exhibit.
Wow.
Showing this progressive, beautiful talent on these envelopes. And it's just, you know, you can work in the most tedious environment, and even a very negative one, right? Bill collection has no glory, very little glory in it, but choosing to brighten someone's day, even in the midst of that. And so I think asking that number one curious question, what can I do? How can I be creative in this moment to bring somebody a smile?
And how do I do that in my work and in my life as I'm going through gas stations and, you know, and grocery stores and everything that I'm doing? How can I bring an element of that in? Because let me tell you something, when I'm calling on the phone these days, which is not my favorite thing to do, we've had a discussion about this.
Yes.
When I encounter somebody who's friendly and nice and is putting and showing even just a tiny bit of effort in their job to make it less painful for me also, my goodness, that goes a long way.
Oh my, yes.
And I go from somebody who is just, you know, a pain and stressed over the situation to just getting off the phone and going, wow, that was pleasant.
Yeah, you've had a positive interaction with another human being.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Is positive interactions with human beings. And as we talk about AI and software and robots and all the other stuff that we do in our lives that kind of are anti-human, that's what we need more of, is that human interaction. And let's show our best selves and the best parts of humanity as we go forward and leave a trail of smiles.
Love it. And I absolutely want to hear your ideas. How do you leave a trail of smiles? Do you have some clever ideas, creative ideas? Let's develop a dialogue around this. So maybe Facebook might be the best place to go. You can check out the Facebook page, curiositynotjudgment.com. Nope, that was the website. You can look for the Curiosity Not Judgment Facebook page, and super happy to connect with you there as well. So have a fantastic week. Leave a trail of smiles, and we will see you next time.
All right, take care.